If you see a knife in my hand, it's not a threat, it's a polite reminder to keep your distance. The words leave my mouth before the knife leaves my fingers. Steel flashes, hisses through the cold warehouse air and buries itself in the wood of a crate a single breath away from the man blocking my exit. The warehouse smells like rust and wet cardboard. Rain from the holes in the roof drips a rhythm onto the floor, thin lines of water crawling toward the rusted drainage grates. Distant, a freight train moans along the tracks. The vibration trembles in the ribs of the building. Light from a pair of floodlamps outside slants through broken windows and harsh stripes, turning dust into glassy stars. The aisles between the shelves are narrow, lined with toppled boxes. Shards crunch under my boots as I pivot, knife still quivering in the wood behind him. The man doesn't flinch. He stands steady, dark hair damp, uniform jacket buttoned to the throat. Calm, square-shouldered, eyes sharp enough to cut without a weapon. This must be the alpha, Marek. His voice, when it comes, is deep and measured, like stone ground against stone. Good throw, he says. The second one will be worse. Your hands are shaking. They're not. My mouth twists. That's not tremor. That's disgust. At your face. For a half second, I expect the corner of his mouth to twitch. It doesn't. Behind him, the others move like pieces on a board, stepping out of shadows. Silent signals with hands, rifles lowered but ready. They're a wedge, pressing me toward the sealed loading gate. Pinned, exactly where they want me. Exactly where I swore I wouldn't be again. Marek doesn't reach for me. He closes the space another way, by standing still, by refusing to move when I need him to. His questions come low and steady, dictating the rhythm of my retreat. You've been running a long time, he says. You make it sound like a hobby. It looks like survival. It looks like you're wasting your men's time. Step by step I back into the light cutting across the floor. My breath comes shallow. Ribs tight. Sarcasm holds my chest together the way tape holds glass. My knife hand twitches. Don't touch me, I say, sharper than steel. None of you. Marek glances sideways, a commander's flick. His soldiers shift, rifles tilt half an inch lower. A gesture of control. A strange kind of courtesy. Leah, the one with the rifle scope, mutters just loud enough to sting, if you trip, do it on my call. Saves paperwork. A bark of laughter escapes me, unexpected. A puff of air to keep my hands from betraying me. The pressure in the room changes. Marek nods once, and one of his men produces restraint clips, sleek, metallic, quiet. No chains, no bruises. He doesn't order them on me. He looks at me. You know the alternative, he says. I swallow. My pulse pounds in my throat. Survival has never been noble, it's been technical. I let the knife slide back into my palm, point down, and raise my free hand in a parody of surrender. Fine, I say. But this is my yes, not yours. The clips snap cold around my wrists, efficient, impersonal. Formal permission disguised as capture. My knife, they let me keep, tucked back into its sheath. A soldier's eye twitches but obeys the nod from their commander. Above us, a train horn wails again, long and mournful. In the static on someone's comm a word crackles. Key. Target has the key. Take him alive. The hair along my arms rises. Marek's gaze sharpens as if he heard it too. The knife at my spine is still mine. For now. And the game I swore I left behind just named me its prize. The number 9 camp squats in the husk of a mining settlement, like a patient animal that refuses to die. The barracks smell like pine tar and damp wool. The administration building's windows wear a permanent jaundice from cheap bulbs, and somewhere below the cracked tiles a generator hums like a fat, contented wasp. Under a sheet metal awning, rain spits and stops and spits again. Cloaks hang from a wire like tired flags, dripping into coffee cans. They put me in the mess hall because it can be watched from 3 doorways and a window. I sit sideways to the nearest exit. Cuffs gone, hands visible on the table. The gray thermals they gave me still hold the ghost of someone else's detergent. My shoulders itch with the memory of cuffs anyway. Leah sets a tray down with military neatness, stew, bread, something green pretending not to be boiled to death. Her mouth twitches at one corner. Culinary excellence. Courtesy of Hal. He swears the knife was clean before it wasn't. I lean in and inhale. Steam, cumin, old iron. I slide the bowl aside. Smells like iron. Blood on the chef's knife? From across the room someone barks a laugh. The tension heaves and drops a notch. Hal, You're bleeding on hospitality again, Leah calls without looking. Then, lower to me, thank you for your service. Anytime, I say. I break the bread, sniff that too, and nibble the edge. Bread's fine. The stew wants tetanus shots. Leah snorts. I'll tell the medic. He lives to scowl. Tomasz arrives like a subheading, bold, underlined. Square shoulders, regulation haircut, a jaw that could open cans. The command patch on his arm looks like it grew there with him. He plants himself opposite me, without the courtesy of a chair's scrape, and folds his forearms on the scarred tabletop. Name, he says. K, I answer. Real name. That one is paid up through the end of the month. His eyes don't like jokes. Place of origin. Cities, I say. The kind with neon and alleys and people who don't ask for papers unless they're selling you a fake. Affiliations. Seasonal, I say. I winter with disappointment. Leah makes a small approving noise and moves to perch on a crate, tablet balanced on one knee. She likes rules, but she enjoys watching them stretch. Tomasz, Marek says, appearing with the quiet of a thought you meant to have later. He doesn't sit. He leans a hip against the end of the table, a single hand braced, casual. In the way a loaded weapon can be casual when it's pointed at the ground. This is a circle, not a firing line. Circles close, Tomasz says. Lines advance. Ground rules, Marek answers, voice even. No one touches him. Voice and distance only. A muscle jumps in Tomasz's cheek. He doesn't look at me when he says, understood. Loudly, Marek adds. Understood, Tomasz repeats, louder for the room. Around us the small motions of a pack in motion pause and resume. A mug. Set down more gently, a boot unlaced, a radio volume thumbed lower. I spoon up some stew, let it cool, then tip it back into the bowl. Pass. Hal, you're very brave, I call toward the kitchen hatch. Brave is for idiots. A voice with a smoker's grin replies. I'm just tired. Questions keep coming, efficient and clipped. The circle of doubt is a drill. Age, Tomasz says. 26, I say. Training. Enough to keep up, I say. Enough to outpace. He doesn't blink. Depends who's chasing. Why number 9? You could have kept moving. That's rich, I murmur, and look at Marek. Because your people hunted me into a corner and offered me cuisine. Because you're safer here than out there, Marek says, as if he's correcting a small math error. For whom, I ask, me or you? Both, he says. Tomasz's stare says he disagrees. Commander, permission to speak plainly? You've never asked before, Leah says, and flips her tablet around to show nothing at all. She's taking notes in her head and pretending not to. Tomasz leans in, by voice only because rules, until the table seems to tilt his words toward me. You are a variable. Variables get people killed. My job is minimizing casualties. My condolences, I say. I'm a person, not a variable. People become variables when they lie. His gaze cuts like a ruler. You're editing. Cleverly. But editing. I'm redacting, I say. Out of care for your delicate sensibilities. Out of care for your skin, he snaps. Tom, Marek says, not louder, just lower, like a hand on the barrel of a rifle. Tomasz withdraws 1/2 inch, the air around the table returns to its original density. Leah tilts her head toward me. If you plan on running, she says, voice pitched for my ears alone, leave a note. I like drama, but I need to schedule it. I blink. Then, involuntary, a laugh happens. Brief, soft, not entirely bitter. I'll draw you a map with glitter. Budget cuts, she says. We're out of glitter. Paint, then. Try crumbs, she says. We feed the birds. The generator coughs and catches, sending a ripple through the bulbs. Shadows fold and unfold across faces. Outside, rain thickens, pattering on the tin roof. The smell of wet dust finds its way in and sits on the stew like a second skin. Marek says, tell me one thing we can verify tonight. I take a breath, test the weight of choices on my tongue. Lies are useless here. The pack is built to smell them. The truth is also useless, strategically, except in doses. South of here, I say, 2 miles. There's a service tunnel from the old pump house under the barracks you haven't sealed because you think it floods. It does. Only at the elbow. There's a shelf above the waterline. Someone could bring suppressors through without you catching scent until they're in your laundry. Leah's thumbs move. Her mouth flattens. He's not wrong, she says after a beat. We map the tunnel but not the shelf. Tomasz's stare sharpens, the angle of his distrust changes. How do you know that? Because I've been there, I say. I like shelves. They don't ask questions. You reconned our perimeter? Tomasz demands. I recon everything that might get me killed, I say. Your perimeter is very enthusiastic. Marek nods once to Lee. Seal the elbow. Quietly. Leah is already sending messages. I'll tell Hal to put the stew on the shelf. Scare them into surrender. A thin crackle crawls across the nearest radio, like static finding a throat. A burst of nonsense. Clipped vowels and tinny consonants. Then, beneath it, another line. Someone trying to ride our frequency without the right handshake. Nine. Copy. The words smear, break, die. Leah's head snaps up. She adjusts the gain, thumb flick on muscle memory. We've got a leech on the band, she says. Or a very bad flirt. Someone's learning our channels, Tomasz says. He isn't looking at me when he says it. But it lands on my side of the table anyway. You're not the only people with ears, I say lightly. Or with radios. And you're not the only person enemies call key, Tomasz says. It's a probe. He watches the way I breathe. I prefer K, I say. And set the spoon down because my hand has decided the idea of eating is for later. Shorter. Less heavy. Marek studies my face like he's reading wind. He's staying in the admin building tonight, he says to the room, which is also to me. East corner, second floor. Leah, you have the detail. Tom, rotate a quiet watch. No touches, no intimidation. Voice and distance. Commander, Tomasz says. And the title contains all the arguments he isn't making. Voice and distance, Marek repeats. It's not a request. Silence. Then Tomasz nods once. The movement like a door closing on a room still full of words. Understood. Leah slides off the crate and taps the table twice with a knuckle. An oddly gentle sound. I'll find you a blanket that doesn't smell like regret, she says. Try to, I say. I have a lot to cover. She grins. We'll invoice. Marek doesn't move yet. He waits until the mess hums again. People, mugs, boots, the small harmonics of belonging. Then he says, quieter. You have a say here, Kay. Not a veto. That's the difference. I'm familiar with differences, I say. I used to be one. That's not a career, he says. That's an injury. I want to say something that will sting, because that's how I know I'm still holding the knife even when it's sheathed. Instead, I hear myself say, your generator is 3 months past grace and coughing carbon monoxide. If you keep running it like that, you'll put your perimeter to sleep. Leah's eyebrows jump. He flirts by threatening to save our lives, she says. Noted. Tomasz's mouth does something that could be the beginning of humor. Then thinks better of it. We'll service the generator, he grinds out. We don't need your lists. You need fewer leaks, I say, and stand because the chair wants to make me small. And more shelves. Marek straightens from the table. He doesn't offer to escort me. He doesn't assign someone to walk at my shoulder. He walks near. Voice and distance made flesh. At the door, Leah tucks the blanket under my arm and lowers her voice. If you do run, she murmurs, don't take the North Trail. That one's all eyes. I'll take the sky, I say. Hard to leave a note up there, she says wry. Maybe write it on a cloud. I'll carve it into the rain, I say, and step out under the tin awning where the smell of smoke and wet wool and old resin mingle into something like a memory I don't dare want, a pack, not a trap. Not yet. On the table by the door, she sets a tiny comms bead and nudges it toward me. Receive only, she says. In case you decide to schedule your drama, I leave it by the blanket. 10 minutes later it's in my ear, and I don't remember choosing. The radio behind us hisses again, just static this time, like teeth behind a smile. The admin building's war room smells like old paper and colder metal. A map eats the wall, cross-hatched with contour lines and pricked with red flags like tiny wounds that never clot. A steel table sits in the center, scraped to a dull shine by years of elbows and bad news. A lamp drops a cone of white over the middle, making the edges of the room feel like a second, quieter country. Somewhere above us, drip, drip, drip. Somewhere behind the partition where the comms desk lives, the soft staccato of Leah's keyboard, tap tap. Pause. Tap. Marek closes the door without looking at it. He doesn't take the head of the table, he takes a side, angle open toward me like a conversation that could go either way. My knife rests in its sheath against my spine. Hot as a thought I keep thinking. My gray thermals itch where the seams rub my wrists. I sit, but sideways, one shoulder aimed at the map, the other toward the door. Facts, he says, and lays a blank pad between us. He's the kind of man who still uses a pen when the rest of the world records its lies in pixels. Motives, I say, and lace my fingers on the table to keep them from clenching. The lamp buzzes. The generator answers in a low thrum. Tap. Tap. Leah's world continues, politely indifferent. Marek doesn't open with the obvious. What do you want, Kay? A window that locks, I say. And a morning without sirens in it. Tonight? He asks. Ever, I say. Then shrug. Tonight is an acceptable trial. Who's hunting you? Everyone who ever called themselves an administrator, I say. Men with badges that look like truths from 10 feet away. The unit designation, he says, patient. Names? I tilt my head. You ever hear the word bait, Marek? His pen stops moving. The muscles at the corners of his mouth don't. Yes, I was that, I say. The old corridor unrolls behind my eyes, painted cinderblock sweating under strip lights, the air heavy with chlorine and antiseptic and the kind of cold that starts in your heels and moves upward like a slow flood. The curator's voice, soft like a pillow over a mouth, telling me I was special. Telling me I would be the hinge that swung doors wide. Telling me to stand still. Smile with my eyes. Let them smell permission. Bait, I repeat. And the word comes out flatter than I mean it to. They sent me ahead to attract exactly the kind of attention you're giving me now. Who is they? Marek asks. A structure, I say. With funding. With rules that read like prayers if you squint. With men who think they're the shepherd because they learned to whistle. Behind the partition, Leah coughs once, discreetly, like punctuation. Marek writes one word, then another. You ran, he says. Not a question. I walked quickly, I say. Running is suspicious. He almost smiles. You're editing. I'm redacting, I say. It's an art form. Tell me one thing unredacted. I look at the red flags on the map. One sits over a narrow valley with a road like a vein. The road to Starin. There's a culvert under the north turn with a crawl space. It's dry even in rain. If your people ever need to disappear in a hurry, it fits too. Barely. Take off your packs first. He writes it down without glancing at the map. Useful, he says, and it doesn't sound like a compliment or a test, just a category. The drip above us holds its breath and drops again, louder. Tap. Tap. Leah's fingers dance and pause and dance. Tell me why you came toward us, he says. I huff. You herded me, remember? You had 27 seconds to choose a different hole, he says. You chose number 9. I consider lying. It's not a moral problem, it's a structural one. Packs smell lies. Because you don't touch, I say. Because you said it like a law and made your people obey. That's not standard, he admits. I noticed, I say, and it comes out softer than I mean. You said voice and distance, and my lungs opened. It was inconvenient. His pen stops. Inconvenient? For the part of me that survives by assuming the worst, I say. Now it has to keep 2 lists. He lets that sit. He's good at leaving space in which a person might hang themselves, or lower the weapon very slowly. His gaze flicks to my shoulder, then to the line of my arm, then to my hand. Knife. He says mildly. I'd like to send it to ballistics. Standard procedure. He reaches. Not fast, not a feint, just a human hand moving into a human space. My body doesn't care about qualifiers. It moves before my mouth does. My fingers snap closed around the hilt at my back. My other hand slaps the table and I'm poised without thinking, a hiss between my teeth, a brightness behind my eyes that isn't the lamp at all. Don't, I say. The word comes out raw. He stops with 2 fingers still hanging in the air, like he's about to tap a note on a piano. He withdraws 1 centimeter. 2. He places his hand on the table where I can see it. Thumb open, palm unarmed. Understood, he says. No apology, no push. Just a new line drawn where the old one ended. Leah's keyboard stops. You good? Her voice drifts through the partition, matter of fact, like asking whether we need more paperclips. Good, Marek answers without looking away from me. Continue. The brightness drains. I feel stupid and also alive. I ease the knife back into its nest. My pulse returns to a speed that won't get me arrested by a cardiologist. Coffee, I say. Because humor is a ladder. If I tell you everything, you burn me. If I tell you nothing, you burn me. Maybe we skip both and go straight to coffee? Coffee after 5 answers, he says, deadpan. I show him a palm. 2 down. He arches a brow. Creative accounting. Survival skill, I say. He flips the page on the pad. What did they mark you with? He asks. You keep checking your wrists like you expect to see something you can't wash off. I rub the seam of the thermal on my skin. The old corridor breathes again, chlorine and cold tile and a coin bright. Taste at the back of my throat that might be fear or anesthesia. The curator's hands never touched me, his words did. You'll be better. You'll be useful. You'll be new. They didn't brand me, I say. They marked me. Not with a stencil. With an idea. I meet his eyes. They didn't mark me with a burn. They marked me with an algorithm. The pen pauses mid-letter. Outside, rain rakes the roof harder. A hush like fabric tearing, and then lying still. Explain, he says. Voice even. But it has a new gravity. I roll the word in my mouth, tasting the edges to make sure I won't cut myself if I spit it. I was a sequence, I say finally. A pattern they could read and answer. A bait with a signature. You get within range, I unlock things you don't want unlocked. Or lock them. Depends on the song they play. His eyes sharpen. What things? People, I say, and the lamp suddenly feels too white. Wolves. The part of you that listens below language. He doesn't move. For a second he's a statue built to look like a man. Then he breathes, not a sign, just an act, and writes algorithm on the pad like it's a word he's been waiting to use for years. Leah's keyboard starts again, slow. Tap. Tap. Maybe she's not listening. Maybe she is. Leah always is. You think I'm a system, I say, and the bitterness scalds less than I expected. That's why Tom looks at me like a grenade someone already pulled. I think systems are made of people, Marek says. I've watched omegas pull us out of fires we set ourselves. I've watched alphas break things we couldn't repair. System is a lazy word for choices we haven't examined. You're waxing philosophy, I say. Does it come with biscuits? Answer 3 more, he says. Then you can have coffee and biscuits. Bribery, I say. Noted. He leans back just enough to prove he's not coming closer. Why did your old unit abandon you, Kay? They didn't, I say. Abandonment implies care that failed. They deployed me until the metrics said stop. Then they stopped. From where? From everywhere you would prefer not to list on a map, I say. Border towns, checkpoints with names that taste like sand, basements you only find if someone leaves a light on by accident. Who was your curator? He asks. A voice with perfect diction, I say. If I say his name, you'll make a call, and then choices get made I can't unmake. You don't want that yet? He accepts the yet with a small motion. What do you fear will happen here? I look at the flags again. That I'll be useful, I say. And you'll prove them right about me. Silence. The drip falters. Leah's keys pause. You are useful, he says. That doesn't make you theirs. I'd like to believe you, I say. Belief is expensive. We have a budget, he says dryly. Do you, I say, and almost smile. Line item for faith. Line item for voice and distance, he corrects. And for coffee. 4, I say, ticking the air with a finger. 1 to go. He studies me like weather. Do you want to stay here tonight? Or do you want Leah to walk you to the gate and wish you luck? I want to not be the reason your generator kills you, I say. I want your people to sleep with their hands empty. I want, for a statistically improbable moment, to feel the thing your pack smells like when it's not busy being suspicious. I lift a shoulder. So, I'll stay. Good, he says. He stands, the chair legs whispering the way things do when they've learned not to complain. Leah will post a watch. Quiet. Tap. Tap. Already done, Leah calls, as if we'd invited her to a party by saying nothing at all. Marek rests his hand on the pad, as if to keep the words from flying off. We'll do this again tomorrow, he says. Coffee now? I ask. He glances at his notes. By my count, that was 6. I blink. Creative accounting, I say. You're learning? He almost smiles. Stay sharp, Kay. I touch the knife at my back. If I get any sharper, you'll need gloves. Voice and distance, he reminds me. Voice and distance, I echo. And the words feel less like a rule and more like something alive. When I stand, the room tilts toward the door, and then rights itself. On the way out, the radio on Leah's desk burps static, then a ghost of a voice slips under the noise, someone trying our frequencies like keys on a ring. Nah. 9. Copy? It dies before it can decide to be dangerous. Leah doesn't look up from her screen. Leech on the line, she says. Or a very bad flirt. Seal the culvert, Marek says. Quietly. Already sealing, she says, and tosses me a look that lands like a bandage thrown across a cut. Blanket upgrade approved. I breathe in the smell of dust and ink, and distant rain, and feel something. In my chest shift, not breaking. Tilting, like a glass catching light. A crack, hair thin and real. Not enough to make me trust. Enough to make me want to. Fog drapes the pines like old gauze. The outer perimeter is a wet whisper. Moss slick beneath boots, alder leaves stuck to my cuffs, breath turning. To ghost light in the beams of headlamps that flick on and off as if the trees themselves are blinking. I'm halfway to the latrine and privately composing a sonnet about number 9's coffee when the first suppressed shot claps the fog like someone folded a sheet. Instinct yanks me down behind a rotting stump. A splinter nicks my ear. 2 more thuds follow, close, precise, almost polite. Contact, west fence. Leah's voice snaps in my earbud, clipped and calm. Multiple. Profiles masked, signatures damped. Commander? Copy. Marek is already moving, he always is, his shadow sliding through the mist with the efficiency of a decision. Tom, left hook. Leah, give me eyes. Cameras are fog blind, Leah says. I've got sound but they're cutting it. Another papery thwack. A spark leaps off the chain link in a quiet, embarrassed way. My nose finds nothing. Just wet earth, resin, my own skin. Whoever is coming wears scent suppressors tuned to wolf ranges. It's like someone turned off the part of the world that tells me what's wrong. Stay inside lines, Kay, Marek says, voice low, somewhere to my right. I can feel him, not smell him. A strange absence shaped like a man. Inside which lines exactly? I murmur, and peek over the stump just in time to see 4 shadows detach from the gray and flow along the fence. Their masks are matte, their weapons stubby. Their steps synchronize to our heartbeat. Another burst, thuth-tut, and a lantern dies. Night presses closer. The camp exhales sharply, then goes very still. West squad break, Tomas orders, already sprinting. His boots find the ground the way history finds patterns. 2 of our silhouettes peel off and vanish into the white. The nearest intruder clears the fence with a grace that hasn't had time to get cocky. He lands like a folded coat and glides toward the barracks. I don't think, I move. No knife flash, no warning. I let him pass my stump, then rise and take his arm at the elbow and wrist, torque and drop. He hits the moss with a breathless HNF. My knee kisses the meat of his shoulder, my hand slides under the suppressor unit on his throat and pops the clip. The unit comes free with a damp clap, air rushes in and suddenly he smells like citronella and fear. Sleep, I tell him, and cut the connection on his comm with my thumb. He goes for a blade, I catch his hand, roll his wrist until the blade forgets to be brave, and lay him down in the ferns. It's not art. It's very good routine. Commander? Leah, again. We're reading clipped chatter piggybacking, unknown pause, trying our band again. Keep them out, Marek says. Tom, push them to the service road. K? Busy, I say, and the fog opens to reveal Marek 5 paces away, a shape built from negative space and restraint. His head tilts, just enough to take my measure. No surprise in his eyes. Just the accounting of a man updating a file. Not a civilian, he says. I drag the downed Merc off the trail and strip his scent patch, pocketing it. I'm very civic-minded. Suppressors whisper on the other side of the latrine. A flicker of muzzle light sketches the world in reverse. The next intruder is too fast for comfort, cutting angles that would make a geometry teacher proud. He slashes and I let the blade slide by my ribs, feeling the wind of it. Then step inside his stance and pop his knee with my hip. He stumbles, my forearm finds his throat, my hand finds the second suppressor clip and, click, air and fear again. Left, Marek says, and I pivot on the word. Another shadow peels out of the trees. Gun up. Marek's shot is a quiet bruise. Against the night, the intruder's shoulder jerks, the weapon spins away. The man retreats behind a pine and curses in a language I learned to ignore the way people learn to ignore trains. Count? Tomasz's voice. 8 initial, Leah says. 2 silent now, thanks K. 1 wounded. Reading 2 more at the fence. Left hook, cut them from their exfil. Tomasz returns, and vanishes into the fog like a dare. A lantern in the yard flickers up and shows me something that slides into place in my head like a key into a familiar lock. The Merc's masks have layered membrane vents that don't just kill scent, they chew it and spit static. They're not just muting scent, they're injecting noise into our range. They're not guessing about us, they prepared. A voice barks through the fog. Raw, wrong, not ours. The key's on him, take him alive. The word scrapes my ribs like a file. Key. My skin tightens. My spine remembers cold tile, chlorine. A voice saying hinge, hinge, hinge. Marek's head turns minutely toward the sound, and in that second, I see him see it the way the other Mercs flick their attention to me like a compass needle kissing north. Not random. Not opportunistic. Targeted. K, with me, he says. Voice and distance, I say, because the rule is a rope. I'm very attached to both. Attached later, he says. Move. He falls back toward the shadow of the admin building. I move with him, our steps sinking as if we practiced. We don't. Packs build rhythm out of necessity, or they die. We make the corner of the barracks just as 2 Mercs sweep out of the fog, weapons leveled at elbow height like they were born there. Down, I say. Left. I see, he says, already dropping. His shot is a whisper, mine is a hand, low and fast, catching a barrel and twisting it toward the sky. The suppressed puh of the round is anticlimactic. The recoil jerks the man's shoulder. I ride it and punch, bone to mask. He folds more from insult than pain. But down is down. Tom, your flank, Marek says into his mic. Leah. Painting your visitors with words, Leah says dryly. 3 more at the east fence. 2 at the drain culvert. Oh, don't you, Tom, we have rats at the elbow. En route. Tomasz returns. The fog thins at ground level, swirled by bodies. Boots, breath, the soft grit of needles. A Merc lunges around the corner, and I meet him halfway, step knee elbow, an ugly little chain that ends with him deciding the ground is a friend. Marek's shoulder bumps mine for an instant when we both shift to cover the same window, then clears. Spines align. Eyes scan opposite arcs. Left, I say. Right, he answers. Stairs, I add, hearing the change in air above the service landing. 2, he confirms. We don't breathe the same, exactly. We do a convincing impression. Question, I say between the quiet collisions. If we survive this, I choose coffee. And pie? Pie is seasonal, he says. Then you'll have to declare a season. Focus, he says, but there's a line in his voice that isn't flat anymore. It lands and warms a very small, very stubborn part of me. A shadow on the stairs. I throw a bolt from my pocket into the landing light. It pings, sparks, dies. The Merc blinks at the noise just long enough for Marek to put him down neat as a signature. Culvert? I ask. Leah. Marek prompts. Tom's flushing them, she reports. Also, tell Hal if one more person bleeds on his floor he's starting an art installation. Another masked figure ghosts by the corner and pauses, head cocked, sniffing like a dog who's lost his sense of smell and hates it. His mask whirs softly, overcompensating. The unit strapped at his neck is bigger than the others. A newer model. It hums like a wasp nest. They're not just killing scent, I say. They're jamming. They'll ride the static right into us. How charming, Marek says. Move. We peel back toward the service corridor between barracks. The concrete mouth of the old utilities tunnel yawns behind a rusted door, paint pocked with blisters, hinges sighing like old men. Cold air breathes out, limestone and damp. This way, I say. And it costs me nothing and everything. Documents used to live here. And a few other things. I retrieved yours, he finishes, and it's not a question. Not condemnation either, just file keeping. I prefer my name on my papers, I say, and shove the door. The tunnel swallows us whole. The sound changes. Footsteps become hollow coins rolling. The cold licks my forearms. The walls sweat lime. Overhead, a single strip lamp flickers and then thinks better of it. Leah's voice finds us anyway, tinny, threaded through our bones. 2 hostiles peeled toward admin. One heading where you are, how quaint. They like your decor. Tom? Marek says. Busy, Tomasz grunts, which usually means he's winning. We move deeper. The tunnel kinks left, then right. Then does the elbow where the water gathers. Tonight it gleams like a split vein, black and indifferent. Above it, the shelf. I step onto the narrow ledge with the same old little hop that used to make me feel like I'd been let in on a secret. Marek follows without asking. He's got longer legs, he pretends it matters, it doesn't. Behind us, a merc steps, skitter, and slow. He doesn't smell like anything until I peel the suppressor unit out of my pocket and thumb the clip back on. The tunnel fills with a faint whine. The merc's head tilts at the illusion of scent where there is none. He steps where I want him to. Marek's hand is a shadow lifting, then lowering. The man drops into the water with a quiet slap and goes where cold sends him, away. We keep moving. The tunnel opens into a maintenance junction, valves like sleeping giants, cable trays hung with old wiring, a ladder that climbs into a dark throat. I feel the map of it reprint itself across my skin. My body remembers the angles even when my brain doesn't like the memory. You live well in corridors, Marek says. Not unkind. I live, I say. The radio hisses, then spits words that aren't Lee. Copy. Key. Alive. The voice is too bright, like a smile that forgot to feel. Marek's jaw tightens. He's losing his patience, which is rare. Not because he can't hold it, because he hates waste. Men who aim for the heart and hit the arm irritate him. Men who aim for me outrage something quieter. Leah, status, he says. 3 down, 1 swimming, she says. Statics receding, culvert sealed. Tom suggests the phrase come and get it but with fewer syllables. Negative, Marek says, dry. Then, to me, up. We climb. My breath fogs the rung below my face. The hatch gives after a firm shoulder from Marek, and we spill into a storage room that smells like wool and old paper, and the comfort of not being a tunnel. Rain drums louder up here. The world has edges again. I look at him. He looks at me. Fog curls under the door like eavesdropped conversation. They called me Key, I say, and the word tastes like a door I don't want to open. They knew where to jam us. They brought the right toys. They knew our protocols, he says. Or something like them. Wolf playbook, I say. Someone's been reading, or writing, he says. We'll find out which. Another quiet shot thuds in the yard. Then Tomas's voice, with the grim satisfaction of a man who put a period where someone wanted an ellipsis. Perimeter clear. We exhale at approximately the same time. I discover I've been holding the knife behind my back like a talisman no one asked for. If we survive this, I say, I choose coffee. And pie, he says, is suddenly in season. Now that's leadership. He almost smiles. You all right? Define, right, I say. I'm upright. My sarcasm still loads. My moral compass is magnetic north adjacent. Good enough, he says. Beyond the door, the fog thins, revealing the yard in ghostly slices. Leah's voice rides the quiet, smaller, like she's speaking from the edge of a page. We're clean for now. But those masks? I pulled one from a downed unit. It's not just suppression. It's blocking. Frequency targeted. Somebody brought a lab to a knife fight. Foreshadowing, I mutter. What? Nothing, I say, and tuck the thought away like a shard I'll need later. The hunt just changed shape. And whoever's writing this playbook knows exactly which senses to blind first. The medical block looks like someone scrubbed it to death and left the ghost behind. Antiseptic and camphor ride the air. Metal trays gleam like small obedient moons. Ultraviolet lamps buzz overhead, throwing a faint violet bruise against the walls. The windows are skinned over with light filters that flatten the afternoon into a jaundiced almost night. Every sound is thin and exact, a clamp's click, the soft drag of gauze, the generator's patient wasp song under the floor. I sit on a cot with a blanket that smells like laundry done by a pessimist. Gray thermals, bare forearms, the knife at my spine like a spine that chose not to be born in me. Marek stands near the foot of the bed, not blocking the door, not guarding the only window, near, not close, voice and distance made into posture. Leah lingers by the counter, tapping a pen against a sealed packet of swabs with academic menace. Tomasz positions himself where men put themselves when they are ready to catch a lie and drop it down a well. Start, Marek says. He doesn't open a notebook this time. He doesn't need the theater. His gaze is enough theater for 3. Fine, I say. My mouth is dry. The UV light makes my skin look like paper someone wrote on with lemon juice. You want the short version or the kind that hurts on the way out? Short first, he says. Then the truth. Cute, I say, and my smile tastes old. There's a sequence in me, built into the base of who I am. You read it, by scent, by sound, by proximity, and suddenly your wolf is listening to a song you didn't pick. Leah stills. The pen stops tapping. Tomash's jaw resets like a dial. Listening how, Marek says, jaw steady. Like it's bedtime, I say. Like the Alpha Center remembers it's a muscle and somebody else learned the stretch. Calm and compliance, a hush. You don't stop being you. You stop fighting the hand that isn't yours. I make my voice flat so it won't wobble. They call it an attunement algorithm. I call it someone learning to whistle inside your skull. Leah exhales. A tiny fraction. And you carry access. I carry an answer, I say. I'm the handshake that opens the door. Without me, the system can hum to itself all day. With me, I swallow. The antiseptic climbs higher in my nose until it's all I am. With me, you can walk an alpha through a fire drill, and he'll think it was his idea. Why, Tomasz says, and you can hear the metal in it. Are you in my camp? Because your camp learned a trick my old one never did, I say. It asks before it touches. Don't pivot, he says. Explain how you're not a bomb. I didn't say I wasn't, I say. I said I'm also the timer and the wire cutter, and the idiot who knows which wire is red under this lighting. Marek's attention doesn't flicker. How did they do it? They calibrated me, I say. And the word tastes like the underside of a door. Stress tests, scent panels, voice ladders. I stood in rooms while men behind glass made notes about what made my hands shake in interesting ways. They paired cues, olfactory, auditory, with body reactions until my nervous system learned a duet it couldn't forget. The cot creaks when I shift. It sounds like a cheap apology. They didn't teach me to be a person. They taught me to be bait with a harmonics package. Leah's face hardens at the edges. She doesn't come closer. She speaks from where a rational witness would stand. If he's the handshake, she says quietly, he can also be the block. You can't access or shut down a system you can't key into. He's not just a risk. He's the only off switch we've met. Tomasz cuts her a look that would have broken bones if it were a fist. Pace a vector. Vectors take direction, Leah counters. If he points at us, we're dead. If we point him at the thing that's hunting us, we get to decide what death looks like, and when we decline the option. Very poetic, Tomasz says. He doesn't spit. He doesn't need to. His disdain wipes the floor. I can feel the anger blossom in my chest like something with teeth. You don't get to be angry at me for what they built, I say. I'm the tool they made and threw away when the grant ended. You're mad because I remind you your alpha isn't a god. He's a man with a nervous system and a target drawn on it in ink only I can see. Stand down, Tom, Marek says softly. Commander, with respect. With respect, Marek says. And the softness is gone now. I said stand down. Tomasz's hands clench and open at his sides. He turns his face away for a measured count of 5. The lamps buzz. The generators hum back. The world hums, and I am so tired of being the noise that doesn't fit. Scan me, I say to Leah. Because doing something is sometimes the only act that lets a person not run. Run your clean little toys over my bones, you won't find a chip. There's no branded mark to cut. It's not hardware. It's me. Leah doesn't pick up a scanner. She holds my gaze for 3 breaths and then sets a ration bar on the metal tray with a soft, decisive click. Legal cookie, she says, deadpan. For when the truth complains that it makes your hands shake. I look at the bar. The foil winks at the UV. I hate that it works, I mutter. And break a corner off. It tastes like brown sugar held at gunpoint. My hands do stop shaking. Next, Marek says. They used conditioned pairs, I say around the chalk. Endless drills. A bell you can't hear unless your nose knows what it's smelling. A tone you don't register unless your gut remembers the smell that came with it in month 2 of training. It's invasive because it never touches you. It just teaches your animal the wrong lullaby. The fancy part is the key. The attunement algorithm sits like a lock in the system. It won't open to any whistle. It opens to me, to my pattern, to my blood. Leah frowns. Literal blood? I wiggle a hand. Metaphor that got into bed with genomics. I swallow again. The camphor seems to have set up housekeeping in my sinuses. They sampled, they sequenced, they sang back at me until we hummed in time. I left before they finished the chorus. And now the men with new masks and old intentions are trying to finish it using you, Marek says. Now you're caught up, I say. Solution, Tomasz says flatly. Remove the vector. I look at him, really look. Past the uniform and the ironclad angle of command. There's a man there whose job is bodies and names, and making sure the first become the second as little as possible. I choose not to hate him for the obvious math. You're proving my thesis, I say, and it isn't kind. Alphas love simple answers. Kill the problem. Break the lever. Burn the room. Sometimes rooms should burn, he answers. Leah doesn't raise her voice. And sometimes when the room is full of our own people, we turn on the extractor and find the gas line. Marek's gaze cuts to the UV lamps, to the filters on the windows, to the door, where the corridor smells like resin, and wet wool, and the ghost of fog. He's doing the calculation he lives for, risk against risk, loss against loss. The pack tucked in the hollow under his ribs has two new weights in it. Us and me. If we push him out, Leah says, reading his silence the way she reads bad radio, they'll have him within an hour. We lose the block. We lose the person. And we inherit whatever happens when they use him on us. If we keep him, Tomasz says, we become the thing we're afraid of. A host. Marek looks at me. What do you want, Kay? I almost laugh. The question is so expensive it comes with its own bodyguard. To not be a door, I say. To make them pay for building a house out of me anyway. To have one morning where I don't wake up already playing defense. Locations, he says, and the word is not a pivot. It's a bridge. Where would a lab hide if it wanted us to think we'd already looked there? I stare at the filters on the glass until the jaundiced light blurs. The map rewrites itself across the inside of my skull, the culvert, the elbow, the shelf, the service road, the old pump house, there's a shaft, I say slowly. 3 clicks northeast. Looks derelict. The road to it pretends to be a logging track on the maps. But the run of it? I swallow. My tongue feels like paper. I've walked that angle before, not there, somewhere else, in the old workups. Same math, same hand. Leah is already at the wall, dragging down a laminated map with old tape scars on the corners. Coordinates? I give them. The numbers taste like rust as they come out. She plots, draws a pencil line, pauses, then draws a second line over an older faint one the color of memory. Huh, she says, softly. That's not just familiar, it's signature. Same angles, same timing gaps. The hand that drew your old roots drew this one too, just with a different pen. Marek's shoulders settle the way a man's do when the fight arrives in an outfit he recognizes. We'll confirm, he says. To Tomasz, prep a quiet team, no insignia. We don't spook ghosts. Commander, Tomasz says, warning and acceptance doing a slow uneasy dance in his voice. He turns back to me. If we do this, he says, you don't leave the perimeter alone, you don't touch the teams, you tell Leah when your hands shake, and when I say down, you go down. Voice and distance, I say automatically, because I need the anchor. Exactly, he says. And I'm adding coffee. Bribery keeps me pliant, I say. Tell your ethics board. We are the ethics board, Leah says, and slides the ration bar a little closer, like a vote. I break off another piece I don't want, and let it melt into crumbs that stick to my tongue. Fine, I say. We try it your way. Good, Marek says. I don't look at Tomasz when he leaves. I don't have to. His footsteps carry a whole room out with them. Leah peels off to the comms office with the map tucked under her arm. Like a baby she plans to raise into a monster, and then teach manners. The lamps buzz. The filters dull the light to a kind of patient waiting. My hands quiet. My heart does not. You're scared, Marek says when it's briefly only us, and the smell of camphor and the idea of something worse. Terrified, I say. Congratulations to me for noticing. You're also angry. Always, I say. It kept me alive. Now it's sore from lifting too long. He nods. Like we just discussed a sprain. We'll use both. I'm not your weapon, I say. I have to say it. The room requires it. My ribs require it. You're not, he agrees. You're a person who can do a thing other people can't. That's not a weapon, that's a choice. Expensive word, I say. We have a budget, he answers, deadpan. And a bakery. I huff. Tell me you at least have good coffee. We have Leah, he says. Which is better. I exhale a laugh I didn't know I was holding. The world is still waiting. But there's a direction stamped on the waiting now, and it points to a road that tastes like something I've walked before. A new hand is writing on the same old map. This time, I intend to sign my own name at the end. The convoy eats the night in uneven bites. Rain hisses against the windshield, wipers beating a tired tattoo. Tires cut black water into ribbons that fling themselves back at the world. Inside the truck, the air fogs with breath and damp wool. Leah's tablet glows like a private moon in her lap, green dots crawling across a map that doesn't know how much it matters. Camera's blind in a 20-second loop, she murmurs. But only if we're inside the perimeter by then. Inside in 19, Marek says from the driver's seat, voice as calm as if he were ordering bread. His knuckles flex against the wheel. I sit in the back. Black tactical windbreaker zipped to the throat, knife pressed against my spine the way faith presses against a scar. Tomasz rides shotgun, profile etched in the reflection of wet glass. He hasn't spoken since the second checkpoint. He doesn't need to. His silence carries the argument he hasn't had a chance to win. The rain thickens. The mine road tilts upward, gravel under asphalt, pine shadows closing like a mouth. Leah taps her screen. Here. Marek kills the lights. The convoy hums into darkness. We glide the last half-kilometer as if the rain itself were our cover. The shaft yawns like a throat swallowing air. Rusted gantries, corroded rails, a sign half torn away. The underground complex begins 3 levels down, where old rock and new circuitry married for profit. The smell hits first, ozone and wet stone. Fans pumping old air until it tastes like static. The corridors shine with polished resin, green guidelines glowing. Faintly on the floor, arrows pointing the obedient deeper inside. Camera's blind, Leah whispers into comms. Clocks ticking. I take point. Not because they trust me. Because my body remembers the rhythm of these halls the way scars remember knives. Every vent hum is a sentence. Every dip in temperature a clause. There. Junction box humming hotter than the rest. There. Condenser cycling too soon. There. An air return tuned to a pitch only someone broken in the same rooms would know. This way, I say. And my voice is flatter than the corridor. We ghost past a room lined with glass drawers. Leah angles her tablet, but I don't need the feed. The smell alone freezes me. Cardstock, ink, human skin oils pressed between plastic. Files. Bait cards. My hands stutter, the fingers wanting to clench. Names. Codes. Birthdays sold as passwords. My throat forgets itself. The old air claws at me. Marek shifts a fraction closer. Not touching. Just letting his shadow overlap mine. The law of voice and distance kept even here, when everything in me is cracking. Keep moving, he says quietly. The words stitch me shut enough to walk again. The core chamber breathes like a machine pretending to be alive. Glass capsules hum with pale light, fluid circulating in veins of tubing. Terminals blink green, yellow, then green again. The guidelines converge at a raised console. An altar for the religion of obedience. Leah moves fast, planting charges like she's setting down flowers she doesn't want to admit she bought. Tomasz positions the cover team, every step written in capital letters. Marek stations himself near the console. I stand where the green arrows end, staring at the interface that smells like my nightmares. This is it, Leah says. We can fry the storage. But the live kernel, this is keyed. Needs the counter sequence to disable before we burn. Which is code for, it needs me. Talk, Marek says. I swallow. My throat tastes of copper. The algorithm doesn't die unless I sing its reverse. They built the key into me. I'm the lock and the crowbar. It'll take, my chest clenches, everything they trained into me. The triggers, smell, sound, the panic spiral they left behind. Tomasz growls, low and sharp. No. Pull the commander out. This is too deep. No, Marek answers, just as sharp. We're finishing. Commander. I stay, Marek says. No heat, only steel. Cover, if you want to live. The air thickens between them. Leah cuts through it with the rustle of wires. He's right. If K doesn't do this, the kernel replicates. You want that walking into our camp? Tomasz swears under his breath but takes the flank. He'll hate me better later. The console wakes at my presence, like it remembers. Panels flicker, tone humming faintly in the bones of my jaw. A prompt appears, confirm input, voice matrix. My breath stops. The voice they want isn't mine. It's his. The curator. Perfect diction, warm as chloroform. I can't reproduce it, my throat rebels, my skin crawls. I can't, I whisper. Yes, you can, Marek says, steady. Different way. There is no different way. There is always choice, he cuts in, his eyes pin me where no harness could. Stay here. With me, breathe. The console waits, pitiless. The air smells like scorched plastic already, though nothing burns. I hit the manual override, forced severance. The room screams. A white flash detonates behind my eyes. My ears ring with a dentist's drill. Endless. Drilling inward. The smell of hot circuitry floods the air, burned insulation and melting plastic. My lungs claw at nothing. My body convulses toward the memory of being bait, of standing under fluorescent hell while men scribbled notes about what broke me. K. Marek's voice slams through the shriek. Short phrases. Anchors. Here. Now. Breathe. I can't. Yes. You can. His tone matches my gasping rhythm, bending mine into his. In. Out. Again. I shake. Ribs locked. Nails cutting my palms. Hurts. I know. Stay with me. Count. I count because it's easier than dying. 1. 2. Air in, air out. His cadence locks to mine. Antithesis to the song of obedience. My animal listens, and chooses him. The console flares, then collapses. The prompt dissolves into error bars. Kernel severed. Leah slams a charge onto the housing. Det set. Det not. Marek says. She triggers. The blast doesn't roar, it funnels, the charge designed to shove downward. Fire and shock race into the mine's throat. The floor bucks. A wave of stone dust chokes the air. Out! Tomasz bellows. We run. Emergency lights strobe red, painting us like sinners in confession. Sparks rain from exposed cables. The air howls with collapsing ducts. My legs stumble, lungs still ragged. Marek's hand hovers near my arm, never touching but close enough that my body imagines the grip and steadies anyway. The stairwell is a vertical coffin. We climb. Stone grit rains down, rails shudder under weight. Leah's tablet dies in her hand with a plaintive beep. Backup comms offline. Keep moving. I keep moving. Because stopping is worse. Because the part of me that died in that console insists on leaving a body behind, and I refuse to donate mine. We burst into a storage bay. Gray sparks chase us, dust billowing like storm surf. The roof groans. Marek drives us toward the service hatch. Leah yanks it open. Night air slams in, wet and cold and furious. Outside, rain, black pines, the road we came on. The lab sighs once, then caves, taking itself to stone hell. I lean against the hatch frame, every nerve trembling, lungs scraping for more. Kernel's gone, Leah pants, wiping grit off her screen. Data pools, slagged. Virus is dead. Marek exhales, the sound more human than command. Tomasz scans the tree line like the night itself is guilty. I manage a breath and cough up words that taste like smoke. Write it down. Coffee, pie. And at least 2 days without heroics. Leah actually laughs, short and sharp. She tosses me the wrapper of another ration bar. Not pie, but it's legal. Marek's mouth tips at one corner. We'll negotiate upgrades. Behind us, a fragment of panic drifts from a fleeing guard, voice breaking. Over the comm before static eats it, they'll come for him again. As long as he lives. I shiver. Not from the rain. Marek's gaze meets mine, steady, unflinching. He doesn't say we'll stop them. He just nods once. Like the fact I'm still standing is a decision neither of us will undo. The rain writes over our tracks. I let it. And for the first time in years, I don't feel like a tool carried by someone else's hand. Something died in that lab. Something lived too. Whatever comes for me next, I intend to choose my own song. The walls of number 9 headquarters smell new. Fresh paint still clings to the corners where rollers missed by a hair. Maps hang straighter now, edges crisp, flags repinned in tidy grids instead of desperate clusters. A mug of coffee steams on the sill, the dark liquid catching a square of late afternoon light. Out in the hallway, photographs line the wall, faces framed in solemn black or simple brass, the fallen, the saved. History curated like a heartbeat. Marek hasn't changed at first glance. Same uniform neat to regulation. Same posture like the building borrows its balance from him. But his eyes are quieter now. Like storms that have learned the taste of silence. Leah sits at the comms desk. Patch on her shoulder upgraded. Senior comms specialist. Her jokes run drier these days. Less sugar, more edge. Tomasz leans over the central table, finger stabbing at roots. Still blunt, still carved from the bedrock of discipline, though lately he lets his certainty leave room for weather. The door creaks. A shadow spills in first, then a knife hisses through the air and bites into the map on the wall, blade quivering half an inch from Tomasz's hand. Weapons leap out of holsters. Chairs scrape. For a heartbeat the room is all reflex and sharp edges. Then Leah grins. Again with the knife entrance. What, did you run out of pies to promise us? My boots click against the floor. Black jacket, hair shorter, eyes lighter. The scar on my neck is a thin silver thread, half hidden when I tilt my chin. I promise nothing, I say. I merely suggested pie was seasonal. The tension eases like a string cut. Marek doesn't reach for his weapon. He just studies me, gaze steady, chest rising once. You came back. On my terms, I say. I step closer, tug the knife from the wall, and spin it once before sheathing it at my hip. A year ago you wanted me to stay, so here I am. Terms? Marek's tone doesn't flicker, but his eyes sharpen. Work with you, I say. Not under. Boundaries, reinforced concrete. Pay, legal, documented, taxed with receipts. And yes, I choose the pie. Leah chuckles. You hear that, Commander? He's unionizing? Finally some structure, I mutter, brushing dust off the blade. I was worried you'd forgotten how to run a cult properly. The silence that follows isn't empty. It's full. Like a room that knows a new piece of furniture belongs there without asking why. Tomasz breaks it. He steps forward, hand out. His grip is firm, no theatrics. Someone has to be responsible for you. Guess that's me. I look at his hand, then at his face. For the record, I'm responsible for myself. Good, he says. Then we'll share the headache. I shake his hand anyway. Short, solid. Enough. Leah leans against her desk, eyes glinting. That knife stunt? Coming out of your salary, Marek, without pause. Out of mine? I cock an eyebrow. Listen to you. Permission first. I tip the knife toward his belt, then pause, the point hovering near the sheath. Permission? Granted, he says, steady. I slot the blade into the sheath at his belt, hilt snug against his hip. For a second silence stretches thin, charged. Then I pull it back out, and return it to my own side. It isn't a gift, I murmur. It's a reminder. Don't come close without asking. For the first time in a long time, his mouth shapes something more than command. A smile, small and deliberate. Noted. Leah taps a pen against her tablet. Doc 9A update. No touching without explicit consent, pies by popular vote, knife throwing deducted from commander's salary. Ratify? Ratified, Tomasz says, almost smiling, which is to say his face moves 2 millimeters toward weathered human. Later, outside, the courtyard has changed too. A fire crackles under a tarp shelter. Its glow painting the faces of new recruits and old hands alike. Conversations overlap. Plans, jokes, curses softened by warmth. Sparks rise into the damp night like pieces of memory too light to stay. I walk beside Marek toward the blaze. Leah tosses me a ration bar like it's a running joke. I catch it without looking. Tomasz carries an armload of kindling, muttering about rookies who think wood stacks itself. On a bench, Hal lectures a pair of recruits about knife safety and stew contamination in the same breath. Someone tunes a battered radio and gives up to listen to the rain. The flames paint Marek's features gold and shadow, make his eyes less a storm and more a hearth. For once, I don't feel like a weapon disguised as a man. I feel like choice. I'm not a key. I'm a decision. Mine. We stand with the others, letting the quiet talk lean against us and stay. The fire pops, laughter lifts and falls. Behind us, number 9 headquarters breathes in paint and coffee and the weight of names on walls. Ahead, the night is only itself. And as the firelight spills across the faces around me, I know, this isn't the end. It's the beginning of staying.